Calls for universal basic income. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here with my morning stein of coffee, and I hope you're all having a good weekend. I thought we'd have a look at this article from the ABC, written by Nassim Kamdem, regarding calls for universal basic income. Now, a year ago, I did a video. This was looking at basic income and how it failed in Finland. I'll have a link to that for you to watch if you haven't seen it. And essentially, the goal was to provide people with a minimum payment who were on welfare, and they didn't have to fulfill any of the requirements. And if they worked, they didn't lose it. Now, it didn't really succeed in pushing a whole lot of people to jobs, but it did improve their quality of life. It did reduce stress and concerns. One issue I have with this implementation is that it didn't reduce the bureaucratic burden that these welfare systems have. If you're adding universal basic income on top of an existing infrastructure, you're not going to get any of the savings. And that's the biggest problem. You need to abolish all other forms of welfare and just implement this system to get the savings. So we'll have to see. Another concern is, would it lead to inflation? But then again, we're in a world now of money printing, quantitative easing, where money's being handed out to the banks, where repos money's being lent at such a low rate to businesses and people who've got access to that money, which isn't the normal people, that it's kind of, another form of free money for everyone. So it's a crazy world. It really, really is. So, as businesses globally shut down in response to the illness pandemic and tens of millions of workers are laid off, several plans are being canvassed by governments around the world to subsidize people's wages. Almost 25 million jobs could be lost globally due to the illness, according to the UN body warning this week. Based on different scenarios for the impact of the illness on global growth, the International Labour Organization indicated a rise in global unemployment of between 5.3 million, which is the low scenario, and 24.7 million high scenario, from a base level of 188 million in 2019. So that is a fairly large increase in unemployment. And we're going to see that in Australia. Right now, our unemployment rate, and I'll just bring that up, it's sitting at 5.1. I think it's actually gone down since I updated this chart. February went down, which surprised me. But then again, January, December, there usually is a spike in a lot of industries, or a decline in labour. I know construction, a lot of it goes on holiday. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next month, guys, with everything that we're hearing. Is someone who's on leave without pay, are they considered unemployed? Certain groups would be disproportionately impacted, it said, including people in less protected and low-paid jobs, particularly youth and older workers, as well as women and migrants. The ILO called for an internationally coordinated policy response to lower the impact, including extending social protection and supporting jobs through short-term work, paid leave, and other subsidies. It almost feels like this is a coordinated international effort to have uniform systems and government policies around the world, doesn't it? Feels like it. Never waste an opportunity. Every disaster, every calamity is an opportunity for political power to grow. It is also called for further financial and tax relief, including for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, as well as actions by central governments. This is no longer only a global health crisis, it is also a major labour market and economic crisis that is having a huge impact on people, according to the ILO Director General, Guy Ryder. Well, yes, and he's right there, but we haven't actually seen it in Australia. It hasn't actually begun. It's only starting. We're only starting to see mass layoffs. Let us know in the comments, guys. Are you suffering from this? Have you lost your job? Have you had your hours cut? What are you doing to deal with it? Do you have family or friends that are dealing with it? Are you reaching out to help them? Do you have investment properties? Have you contacted your tenants and said, you know what? Have a couple of months without rent. Save it. Put it aside. Pay down your debts. I can absorb it for a while. Have you done that? Are you giving that to your tenants in your, if you're renting out a room, you're offering them that? Something to consider, guys. We don't need the government to solve these problems if people are generous. I mean, that could be the positive spin. that could be the positive spin out of all of this. You know, people will appreciate working from home. They'll realize how stupid it is to commute to the city all the time, and maybe they'll start to, be a bit more generous to other people. Or maybe I'm being a bit cynical, although I have just had my first coffee of the day, so that's when I'm the nicest. The federal government is now considering what additional measures it can introduce to save jobs, in the second part of a major stimulus package expected to be announced over the weekend. Some companies are taking on new staff in the midst of the crisis. On Friday, BHP announced 1,500 jobs for machinery operators, truck drivers, diesel mechanics, boilermakers, trade assistants, electricians and cleaners would be offered as 6 months contracts. But others like Qantas have said they have been forced to let staff go on an unpaid leave, and there will be redundancies. On Wednesday, Qantas and Jetstar stood down 20,000 workers due to the illness. Now, here's the thing, guys. Do we want the government propping up businesses that are failing due to mismanagement? Think about that, because that's your money. That's your taxes, one way or another. You pay it now, or your children pay it in the future. I would rather we have nationwide reductions in taxations. I would target the fuel excise, number one. I would abolish payroll tax, number two. I would look at ways to make systematic long-term changes, removing these burdens from business. So it's going to be, I'd make it easier for people to start up businesses. We've had people in the comments say that they were going for a DA on a house, and they asked, they said, Council, can you give me a break on this? Because, I've lost my job, it's tough times, and the bureaucrats just laughed at them. There's a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy, a lot of paper-pushing jobs. That could be done a lot cheaper, a lot more efficiently. Maybe the government can give people a break. How about license fees or car register fees get refunded for a year? That'd be good. So, how a universal basic income works. What do you think, guys? Before I go into this, are you a fan of the idea of a UBI? Do you think they'll ever actually implement it properly and remove the bureaucracy to get the savings of it? Do you think it'll just inflate prices? Do you think it'll actually work? Or are people too lazy? Or how would you feel if you had enough money coming in to cover your basics and your food? I think that, in some ways I can see how that could... I'm concerned because it could drive up the cost of these items. But then again, money's getting printed out of thin air anyway in other parts of the economy. I can see it having a better impact on people's quality of life because they're not stressing about those bare necessities. But then again, I can also see people just frittling it away because there's even less incentive for them to develop the skills of money management, planning, and living within their means. Let me know your opinion. I can see the benefits of it. I can. But I'm skeptical of it. I'm a little cynical. I don't know if it'll be the utopian dream that everyone hopes for. And just on a side topic, have you read, let me know in the comments, have you read Utopia by Sir Thomas More? Have you read that? It's an easy read. It's quite a short book. You can get it for free at Project Gutenberg. I might do a video, five books to read while you're in isolation, but I'd recommend you have a look at that book because it's fascinating, just the world that he's crafted there, this society that he's created. Let me know if you've read it, guys. Maybe Australia will implement some of those policies. That's pretty authoritarian there. Anyway, back to this. The concept of a universal basic income, a system where everyone receives a standard amount of money regardless of whether they work or not, has gained prominence in recent years, with billionaire supporters including Tesla boss Elon Musk, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, and Virgin's Richard Branson. This periodic cash payment, which has resurfaced in global media headlines as a way to help workers through the illness crisis, as well as more broadly to tackle inequalities, would aim to cover people's basic needs. In Australia, one of the long-term supporters has been University of Queensland professor John Quiggin. He said if the federal government implemented a substantial increase in New Start and abandoned quarantining welfare payments, we'd be on the way to a UBI. In its first package aimed at keeping Australians in jobs announced last week, the federal government handed out $17.6 billion, which included giving welfare recipients a one-off $750. The next stage could be boosting the New Start payment. What we should do is increase the benefit. The government has already indicated there will be a temporary increase in the New Start benefits, but we should make that permanent, Dr. Quiggin said. The government has had a whole range of policies aimed at pushing people off New Start, which are now essentially impossible to apply and irrelevant, with large sections of the labour force will not be able to work. Well, yeah, I mean, this is it. We're in a very unique and difficult situation here. He said when the crisis is over, rather than go back to the same welfare system we've had, the government should move permanently to a guaranteed minimum income. A guaranteed minimum income. Now, it sounds good. It sounds nice. It sounds friendly. But the road to hell is always paved with good intentions, everyone. Remember that. No socialist country has ever survived. Never. Not once. It's always devolved into authoritarianism. You know? So what is reverse taxation and can it help? There are, of course, other ways to help workers. Another concept being discussed is the idea of reverse taxation, which is also known as negative income tax. Under this plan, so long as firms continue to employ their staff, governments would subsidize wages by freezing income tax payments for a period of time. It, some economists say, could help stem the tide of some of the worst affected and most vulnerable companies laying off workers. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to soon release details of an economic plan which could include such a measure. And while the Australian government has not indicated it will go down this route, it is looking to overseas models for the next part of its economic stimulus plan. The NAB senior economist David DeGaris said on NAB's morning podcast that as the illness spreads and workers around the world are at risk of losing their jobs, reverse taxation was a good option. You want something that's going to go to the people who need it, and you want something that's easy to administer, he said. Well, this is the thing, with all of the RBA's attempts to stimulate the economy, it's not going to reach the people. Not at all. It's going to inflate the share market, maybe property. It's not going to reach the people who need to buy basic goods and services. It's not going to address the debt that those people have. They want to encourage businesses to borrow. How many, what type of business would borrow now to keep workers on when they've got no cash flow? It's insane. You keep their number and say, guys, I can't afford to keep you. I'm sorry. I'll ring you up when times get good if you still need a job. It's here for you, waiting. But you've got to understand there's no work. No one would expect, no reasonable employee should expect their boss to take on debt to keep you employed. That's it. In a reasonable conversation, people will understand that. But are we living in a reasonable time? So I forgive me, guys, I don't understand how their methods are going to encourage people. If anything, will encourage more people to, businesses to bump up their own shares. But what about small businesses? Are they going to borrow money for a new car, for new equipment? I'm not buying another point cloud scanner to rent out right now. I'm not going to invest in a year's worth of software because I can borrow it cheaper. I'm more concerned with cash flow. Maybe I've been watching too much Dave Ramsey. That's what it could be with his emergency fund. I'm sure a lot of his fans are appreciating having an emergency fund now. So, governments are urged not to forget the self-employed. Oh, well, they always forget the self-employed, guys. I'm sure a lot of the viewers of this channel I know are self-employed or have their own businesses. What are you going to be borrowing money to keep the business going? Just cut back costs. In stage 1 of its economic stimulus package, and the biggest part of its initial package at a cost of $6.7 billion, the government said almost 700,000 small and medium businesses would receive cash payments of between $2,000 and $25,000 to help pay wages or hire extra staff. See, this is the thing. I wonder how much of this is going to pay for redundancies. Or even if you keep people on 1 day a week, have them working from home. Something to keep your team going. In addition, the banking system is stepping in with relief. Small businesses hit by the illness will now be able to access a 6-month deferral of all loan repayments. the Australian Banking Association said on Friday. I mean, that's so nice. That's so nice of the banks. And I did a video on this yesterday. The cynical bastard I am, I'm just seeing that as the banks protecting their assets. That's what I'm seeing it as. They don't want people to start defaulting, because then you get a snowball effect. They want to keep the bubble going. I know with my last business loan, we attacked it as fast as we could. I wanted it gone. I wanted it gone real quick. Because all these payments, they all add up, guys. Every month, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. When it slows down, you need to cut it. The repayment of $100 billion in small business loans will be put on hold during the illness outbreak, which the ABA expects would put $8 billion back in small businesses' pockets. The banks will also consider home loan relief measures if households enter mortgage stress. Well, they've been entering mortgage stress for a while, as we can see here with the arrears. They weren't considering relief there. What about the farmers that never missed a payment and they just foreclosed on their properties? The banks are not good guys. They've got a monopoly on the situation. You have to go through all their rules, all their systems. They're in bed with the RBA. They're not good guys. It followed the Reserve Bank on Thursday cutting interest rates to a record 0.25% and announcing extraordinary measures to help prevent a virus-driven recession. Well, that's ludicrous. There's no way you can avoid a recession. If you've got the airline industry shedding people, if you've got the airports shedding people, if you've got restaurants closed down, if you've got people not going out, although apparently some are ignoring it, some are not self-isolating. So then Australia's at risk of following the path of Italy. We're going to have a recession, guys. There's going to be a generation that learns what a recession is. And it'll harden them. It'll be good. It'll suck. It'll be painful. People will lose their jobs. Their quality of life will decrease. It'll be a test for marriages. But if you get through it, you'll be stronger for it. Self-employed Australia's Executive Director Ken Phillips said small business assistance needed to extend to the self-employed. He suggested the federal government subsidise pay-as-you-go payments to keep the self-employed afloat. There's just on 2 million self-employed Australians in Australia. Well, there you go. And more than 70% of them are sole traders. There's a big group in the community that's being hit immediately by this, and we cannot afford to have that group fall through the support net. So there you go, guys. Different strategies, including UBI, negative tax, to try and deal with this issue. What do you think? Do you think it'll work? Do you think it'll fail? Do you think it's one step down, a centralized government controlling more and more of our lives? Does it worry you? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, everyone. Have a great weekend and, avoid all the chores you can like I am. I mean, I can't mow the lawn today, guys, because I don't have any petrol in my petrol tank for the lawnmower. I'll have to go out and pray for the plague to get petrol to mow the lawns. Let me know in the comments if you think I should or not. Anyway, thanks all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to help us produce more content, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel here on YouTube or via Patreon to support us with a small monthly fee. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay for your consumer purchases, or Kucoin and Independent Reserve for the crypto traders out there. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays on our blog. You can find the pinned comments below, or from Teespring. Or you can support us via PayPal in the link below. Thanks everyone who's helping the channel with getting a lot of growth, a lot of views. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.